Good evening, folks. What an eventful day over the G20 in South Africa with the U.S. and South Africa trading barbs. It actually all started earlier today when Ronald Lamola misspoke or simply outright lied about the U.S. refugee program from South Africa to the U.S., falsely claiming yet again 10 months after the program was announced, 10 months, more than 10 months since the program was announced, and he's saying that the program is for whites, it's race-based.
When you look at it, it's race-based. Firstly, you must be a white South African, and secondly, you must be an Afrikaner.
That's a complete misstatement, factually incorrect. The U.S. Embassy website says clearly it has since February 10th that it's for Afrikaners or racial minorities, which include coloreds and Indians. That's what started the day. That was on Christian Amanpour with Ronald Lamola. That really got things kicking off. Then later in the day, Cyril Ramaphosa came out and said that the United States is at a change of heart, and he chuckled and laughed like a smartass at a press conference with the EU, and the people in the crowd kind of chuckling like the Americans were retreating and looked silly.
We have received notice from the United States, a notice which we are still in discussions with them over, about a change of mind about participating in one shape, form or other in the summit. So the discussions are still ongoing.
Well, of course, that's absolutely false. And the interesting thing is that South African media outlets have egg all over their face, because instead of being actual journalists or actual analysts, actual people with the ability to think and reason and question, they just bought it hook, line, and sinker. But you have to think for just a moment. On Sunday, November 16th, the Foreign Minister, Ronald Lamola, insulted the United States again and President Trump and said that the refugee program was a white supremacy action, basically calling Trump a white supremacist. On the 16th of November, on the eve of this summit, do you think for a moment the United States would change their position after that vile, repulsive, disgusting act on international media, CNN? When Donnie O'Sullivan asked him that question, there's no way in God's green acre that Trump was going to change U.S. participating. But today, Cyril Ramaphosa breathlessly says, the Americans have had a change of heart. They want to participate in some way. We're working it out at this late stage. Watch what he says.
This comes really at the late hour before the summit begins. And so therefore we do need to engage in those types of discussions to see how practical it is and what it finally really means.
See, Cyril right there. But a real journalist, a real investigator would have asked the question, how in the world did Donald Trump change his mind from Sunday to Thursday after the horrific things that Ronald Lamola said in that CNN documentary, Misinformation, White Genocide, the hit piece on Trump? There's no way. You would have at least said, it seems strange that the United States would have a change of heart at this late stage, given what happened on CNN Sunday. But none of the South African journalists addressed that. They went hook, line, and sinker for it. Well, it turns out it wasn't true. I did a video as this unfolded and questioned this and said it seems implausible. That's real analysis. Not this drink the Kool-Aid, oh, Ramaphosa said it's true, so it's true. You should question. This is a man who had $580,000 stuffed in a sofa in his game ranch. And there's no criminal charges, no investigation. The media in South Africa is completely broken. This is atrocious. They just believed him. Well, listen to the response from the White House, because before you get to that, what I did when I heard this video and took umbrage and offense at the way Ramaphosa chuckled and laughed about the United States. I took offense. If I took offense, imagine what the White House is going to do. But I immediately went to Secretary of State Marco Rubio's Twitter account. I went to the Department of State's Twitter account. I went to the Department of State's website. I went to the U.S. Embassy website. I went to the White House website. I went to President Trump's Truth Social account. Not one peep. While I was broadcasting for an hour, not one peep. Went back, looked at those sites again, not a peep. There's no way that the U.S. government would have a change of heart and not announced it publicly. There's also, in my view, no way they would have changed heart with what happened on Sunday. But South African media breathlessly, and at this hour, nearly 9 hours later, they're still running stories on their websites claiming the United States is coming, when it was debunked this afternoon.
Because there is not a shift. The United States is not participating in official talks at the G20 in South Africa. I saw the South African president running his mouth a little bit against the United States and the president of the United States earlier today, and that language is not appreciated by the president or his team. The ambassador or the representative of the embassy in South Africa is simply there to recognize that the United States will be the host of the G20. They are receiving that send-off at the end of the event. They are not there to participate in official talks, despite what the South African president is falsely claiming.
7 hours ago, easily, it was debunked, maybe 8 hours ago. Yet South African media are still telling the world that the Americans have had to change heart. This is a psychological operations campaign. It's time for an investigation into South Africa's media. Are they colluding with the government? An independent body needs to investigate this. Because this isn't journalism. This is nonsense. Shame on these media outlets. It's time you start putting people up that can reason and think cogently and ask questions. Don't just believe what people tell you. When Trump tells me something, I don't simply believe it. I check on it. And you should do the same when Ramaphosa tells you something. What say you, South Africa? South Africa? Mzansi? Cheers.